3 statistical secrets that you need to know heading into the Turkey Grand Prix. Welcome to the Pitwall, your stop for fantasy Formula One content. You can like and subscribe for more content like this. I'm J-Jack, and let's go. The first statistical secret is the track. The Intercity Istanbul Park has not been used over the last few seasons, but because of filling in one of the vacant spots in the 2020 calendar, that track received new pavement. It was very slippery for Formula One drivers. Normally at a race weekend, there are other series or races that take place to rubber in the track between the free practice sessions and the qualifying and the race. The track officials actually water blasted the track to be able to get some of that grip back in. That meant that the cars were going up to 6 seconds faster per lap compared to last season. That means that there is a totally different way that the cars are going to interact with the track based off the data last year. We're seeing a lot of teams getting caught out with their car setups, partly because there was a chance of rain, 40% on Friday, 40% on Saturday. No rain during free practice session 1 and 2, but that means that cars like Verstappen with their setup and rear instability are having to tweak it. But then that also means that if it ends up raining for free practice session 3 or qualifying, are we going to be able to see any improvements to some of these teams' car setups? Probably not, which is why we come back to Verstappen. He was 1 second off the pace according to AWS's quali simulations. If he is a second off the pace per lap, that means Verstappen is in a whole lot of trouble because people can pass each other on this track, especially if Hamilton's coming up through the field. He's going to be able to get DRS and pass Verstappen. So that means if you're trying to make a decision between Verstappen or Hamilton, you really got to pay attention to free practice session 3, because if Verstappen does not look strong, then he's probably not going to get as many points as you might think, especially with some of the engine upgrades that have come into play. Which now brings us to our second statistical secret: upgrades. Carlos Sainz is taking a full engine upgrade, the one that was promised by Ferrari to get them closer to the homologation date, which means that there's an engine freeze in 2022. That engine penalty that Leclerc took last race is what Sainz is taking this race, which means he'll be starting from the back of the grid. Hamilton isn't taking a full engine upgrade, he's just taking an ICE or internal combustion engine, which means he is taking a 10 grid place penalty. So even if he gets on pole position, he will start midway through the pack, not at the back. He's still good for your team because he could get max points for qualifying. He's been topping free practice session 1 and 2, and then he can get his points bonuses by passing cars and still get a decent haul of points if he gets on the podium. A team to look out for though is Aston Martin. Vettel and Stroll may have to take engine upgrade penalties. That has not been confirmed yet. You'll have to stay tuned. That'll probably be announced around free practice session 3 or before. If that's the case, you don't want either of them on your team, because once they get stuck in those DRS trains, it's very hard to pass the midfield teams. But speaking of engine upgrades and good setup, we have Leclerc. He, according to AWS's quali sim projections, he is 0.04 seconds off of Hamilton's quali pace. That means that the Ferrari engine upgrades are doing what they are supposed to do. That means once Sainz has taken his grid penalty, he could be on pace to passing a lot of cars. So it is a toss-up. You probably won't get as many good points for Sainz for quali, but then he could get it during the race. But I think this is where you have to decide, is the extra money for Leclerc going to be worth it if Leclerc is going to qualify at the front of the grid and be able to stay up there with that powerful Ferrari new engine. This now brings us to our drivers and constructors. First off, let's start with those that are eligible for streaks. McLaren is eligible for what I call a power streak. They can get both a quali 5 points bonus and a race plus 10 points bonus for a total of 15 points. Here is the problem. While Ricciardo is also eligible for 5 points if he gets top 10 in the qualifying, he was P12 in free practice session 1 and P14 in free practice session 2. It seems like we're getting shaky Ricciardo, as my brother said in our podcast. Are we going to get quick Ricciardo or shaky Ricciardo? There's no point of having Ricciardo, who's more expensive than Norris, if he's not going to qualify in the top 10 and get that plus 5 points. Which also then means it's difficult to have McLaren on your team, because if they're not getting the plus 5 bonus points, for qualifying is a guarantee that Ricciardo is going to be able to make up the deficit to get in the top 10 during the race to get you your plus 10 points. This is what I think about Ricciardo. His sentiment is tracking good. I don't think it's going to go up by 0.1 million, but if you think it might because people are holding out that he might get the plus 5 points, you might want to hold on to Ricciardo, get as close as you can, and then switch off of him to somebody who is going to get value, and you pick them up right before they gain their value. That way you can decide if Ricciardo is indeed going to be your points pick or just a value pick. This now brings us to Leclerc. He is my points pick, but not a value pick. Traditionally, Sainz has been doing better than him and cost cheaper, but in this instance, in which Leclerc has taken his engine penalty last race, he has a fresh, brand new, powerful engine this race. Leclerc is looking like a better option than a Ricciardo or a Sainz on your team. What about then the decision between Hamilton and Bottas? You would think that because Hamilton is taking the engine penalty, that Bottas being cheaper would be a good option. Because let's say Hamilton qualifies first, Bottas qualifies second, now Bottas gets pole position. But here's the problem. In Fantasy Formula 1, you get points based off of qualifying, and then it resets based off a starting grid for the race. So Hamilton could get max points for qualifying, then he has got no penalty for taking the grid place spots. Then the team is probably going to get him back on the podium, and if there's a chance that he could be right behind Bottas, the team is going to switch those two drivers, which means that Hamilton in both qualifying and in the race will be ahead of his teammate, which is bonus points that Bottas would be not getting. What you need to decide is Hamilton has got the pace, Hamilton is going to be better than Bottas. Hamilton is going to get the priority, Hamilton is going to get you more points. Now, if it looks like Bottas is going to be better than a Verstappen, then you could drop Verstappen, pick up Bottas, and he's cheaper, and you get the Mercedes power that he's able to keep the pace up front, which now brings us to our dark horse. Why in the world was Perez having faster pace than Verstappen? See, Hamilton was saying he had problems trying to warm up his front tires. Verstappen said he was having problems with his rear tires, and Perez, who's a master at managing his tires, may be benefiting where the other two are having problems. Perez has a tendency to not qualify well, but has good race pace. Don't be deceived by Russia's result where the mixed conditions caught out Perez, but he was going to finish third place ahead of Bottas, ahead of Hamilton, ahead of Verstappen last race, and he could keep that form this race. But you got to see, is he going to be the best option on your team for his price? This now comes to my picks. I like all the things that you guys put in the comments below, and I'm probably going to be talking with you guys as well because it seems like there's such a toss-up going into this race weekend because we have unpredictable weather and we have cars that are reacting unpredictably to this track. So let's look at my lineups. On the left is Team 1, a team traditionally reserved for riding the statistics, holding on to what seems to be the tried and true method and not making a lot of switches. Team 2 is my day trading team, in which I try to get maximum value. And right now, Team 1's 105.9 million and Team 2 is 108.5 million. So you can see the difference in cap space that I'm dealing with. With Team 1, there's no way I'm keeping Alpine. So let's look at some of the options I've got. Due to my budget, I could pick up McLaren. See, I've got a little bit of wiggle room here. And if I have to decide between Bottas and Leclerc, I'll probably go with Leclerc because Leclerc is a little cheaper, which gives me a little bit more room to switch off Gasly and pick up Ricciardo. Now, you might be saying, why in the world would you say don't pick up Ricciardo? And here I am picking up Ricciardo because with the 0.1 million, that means I could go all in McLaren. And if Ricciardo suddenly turns things around and he qualifies top 10, boom, he's got his plus 5 points already. But here's the problem. Do I want to go all in on McLaren? Yes, Sainz in a McLaren last season was leading at the beginning of the race, but that was because of mixed conditions. The other option is to go with Ferrari. McLaren and Ferrari cost the same. If I think that Leclerc is going to outperform Norris and that Sainz coming from the back of the pack is going to get a decent haul of points, then that could be an option there. The other option is to just blow this all up by discarding my changes, switching out Alpine, and going with Red Bull. Because if Verstappen is doing all right and is able to turn things around, and Perez is able to put together a good weekend, then we are looking at something special. Then we drop Bottas, we pick up Leclerc. I still am having a budget deficit. And this is where I have to make the hard decisions, because Gasly, he's very consistent. And if you look at the options here, do I really want to pick up Ocon instead of Gasly? Well, that still wouldn't help me out. Would I really want to pick up Raikkonen or Tsunoda? No. But Tsunoda was showing some good promising pace, and if I waited to after he dropped, then I could pick him up, but he does not seem to be consistent enough. So then that means I have to decide to drop Hamilton. And if I've dropped Hamilton, then I could pick up Verstappen and then run the Red Bull lineup. And then I get a choice. Do I want a Turbo Norris or Leclerc, depending on how I feel at the end of the day? I'm not going to commit to this quite yet. I'm still thinking. Which now brings us to Team 2. Now, Team 2 is a little bit more tricky because I have only one substitution left. Okay, I already have Sainz, who I'm going to switch out for Leclerc. I've got McLaren, who I'm holding on to just because I hope that Ricciardo is able to pull things around. But let's say I picked up Perez instead of Ricciardo. See how I'm able to have Hamilton, Perez, McLaren, Leclerc. If I'm able to get the top 4 drivers and a decent lineup, then I should be good. Now notice I'm having to take negative 10 points if I'm going to do that. So then I might have to activate the wild card. But is it worth activating the wild card? Is it possible? But instead of Leclerc, oh, okay, here's an option. So that I don't take the negative 10 points and I keep my wild card. The reason why I'm holding on the wild card so much is because I actually want to use it when I'm going to use a mega driver on this team. I don't know when it's going to be used, but I'm hoping to use it at Brazil because of the race streaks that either Hamilton or Verstappen could have. This could be the option. The problem, like I said before, do I want to go all in on McLaren? And let's say I want to ditch McLaren at the last moment and pick up Ferrari. Well, that's still negative 10 points. So whichever way I'm looking at it, it's seeming like I might have to take the wild card to be able to give me the flexibility. Whew, decisions. Last thing I noticed this morning, which is pretty cool, and I just want to share it with you. Based off of my strategies, look at this. I'm ranked 41st in the Aston Martin official league. I'm ranked 32nd in the United States league and 715th in the global league. I've been thankful that you guys have been helping me in this community, and it goes to show that just trying to stick to the trends and keeping up with how things are going, you can perform well. Like for example, I'm 3rd in our PITWALL league. This is the season-long league. In the one race challenges, you see I'm hit or miss. Many of you guys have actually stuck around for a while instead of just leaving after the one race challenges, which actually, why not I just promo our one race challenge for Turkey. You have the code right here in the league. You can find it in the description of this video. You can join. Top 3 finishers will get a special podium ceremony at the end of next podcast. If you would like to join in, have fun. It's a one race challenge, so you just have to put in your team, see how you compare. And there you have it, our 3 statistical secrets for the Turkey Grand Prix. Comment below, let me know what you think, your questions, and we can work together to try to find the best lineups. Don't forget to watch free practice session 3. If it rains, man, that might change everything. But if it doesn't, you're going to get the best perspective on which teams are going to go up and which teams are going to go down. And until next time, I'll see you on the pit wall.